We are able to stream, Blake. We're
Okay,
live.
streaming live now, yeah. Israel, you're on mute.
Okay, are we everyone ready to begin?
Yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item, adoption of agenda. Like a motion, please.
I'd like to make an amendment, Israel, to the agenda before we adopt it.
Go ahead, Roger.
I would like to request to add an agenda item number 6.5, in which the Wiseman Unified School District Board authorizes our district superintendent, Dr. Blake Silvers, to form a committee and a process that will ultimately result in the changing of the current name of Peter Burnett Elementary School. The school was originally named in 1956 after the first governor of California, a person that did not hold our community values of social justice, equity, and equality for all. In fact, quite the opposite. I'd also like to clarify that I'm making this request to add this to the agenda due to the unacceptable beliefs of the individual of Peter Burnett, and it is not a reflection of the school itself, which has a very rich history of achievement, excellence in teaching, and love and joy, which is what is more reflective of our current community values. In fact, my 4 sons attended Peter Burnett, and I'm very, very proud of it. And it is a difficult thing to even propose, but I think it would be in the best interest of our community to have a name and our school named after someone that more adequately reflects our overall values. So I would like to propose that we add that as item 6.5.
We have a second.
I'd like to second.
Thank you, Nelson. Should we do a roll call, Wendy, on all board members approving this amendment?
Yes. Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye, enthusiastically.
Ms. Kaneda,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Eileen, would you like to lead us?
I would, thank you. We can stand up, put our hands on our hearts, and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eileen. I think that works a lot better than all of us at once. All right, moving on from the public. Wendy, would you like to lead us in comments from the public?
Yes. Mr. Moore, I'd like to clarify, as per board bylaw 9323, the governing board of the Wiseburn Unified School District puts a time limit on public comments to include 3 minutes per comment and 20 minutes for the public comment period. We will attempt to read all the comments within the 20-minute period. Please note that for today's meeting, we received approximately 30 comments and will read them in the order received. Our Board of Trustees and our superintendent have received and reviewed all comments. Thank you for your understanding. Okay, this is from Tyler Tuttle. Today at the peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter, I learned that California's first governor, Peter Burnett, whom my school is named after, is actually an awful person who did some horrible things to Black people. I am not proud to attend a school named after someone who is the opposite of Bulldog Best. Please consider changing the name of this school to honor a real hero who deserves recognition. Thank you for your time. Levi Aaron Meeker. My name is Levi Aaron Meeker, and I am in the 4th grade at Peter Burnett Elementary School. 1 year ago, when I was in 3rd grade, my grandpa asked me if I knew who Peter Burnett was, and I said I did not, and he said that he didn't know either. We thought we should look him up. We went to the library, and after 3 books and 1 bad internet search, we found him. The website we found told us he was racist and abused his power. When I found this out, I was shocked and disappointed. I thought, why would they name a good and inclusive school after a deplorable and discriminating man? So I really hope you will change the name of my school to someone more worthy of it. Allison Wood, in solidarity with widespread and overdue efforts to make change to institutional and systemic racism, we ask that the name of our community school be changed. It is a well-documented fact that Peter Burnett held racist beliefs and used his power in office to enact legislature intended to discriminate, exclude, and harm Black, Chinese, and Native American people. He is not representative of the values and attitudes of our community and should not be memorialized or honored in the use of his name as our children's school. We ask that the elementary school is renamed as soon as possible. This symbolic act of removing his name from our educational institution will hopefully reflect ongoing efforts to dismantle institutionalized racism in our biased school system and curriculum. Thank you. Bronwyn Shields. It has come to my attention that Peter Burnett Elementary is named for California's first governor, whose openly racist attitudes towards Blacks, Chinese, and Native Americans is well known. I do not feel that honoring someone with this legacy is in keeping with the values we as a community hold. I would like to see the school named for a Californian who we can all look up to and has made our community a better place. Susan Clark Atkinson. As the mother of two 7-year-old biracial boys who are soon to be second graders at Cabrillo and incoming to Peter Burnett in 2021, I was heartbroken to learn that the school is named after a man who enacted racist policies and incited division in our state. For the sake of my boys, I respectfully ask you to consider renaming the school with the name of someone who is deserving of the honor and whose life reflects the values of racial justice and equality that we believe in across our diverse community. Many thanks. Natalia Colazo. The request to rename Peter Burnett School is appropriate and timely. Peter Burnett is not reflective of who we are in this community. Taking this action will also demonstrate to our children that we are sincere in taking positive steps towards a more equitable society. Katie Hansen. I am a resident who lives in Weisburn District and who attended the Weisburn schools. My dad attended all Weisburn elementary and middle schools when he was growing up here in the 60s and 70s. When I walk or drive by the new campuses, my admiration is always tinged with a bit of nostalgia for the old campuses that I ran around on. I say this to express that I understand tradition and historical value. However, I'm sure I'm not the first person to point out that our amazing schools in our amazing district are really due for a name change. With a district that's 124 years old, we're bound to run up against this issue. Peter Burnett, while the first elected governor of California, is no longer the sort of historical leader we would name our schools after. His legacy is full of racist attitudes and actions against Chinese immigrants, African Americans, and Native Americans, including the systemic flogging of any free Blacks who would leave Oregon voluntarily in the 1840s. It's especially frustrating that we have this problem in a district that is so celebrated for its diversity. Your website says it's the #2 most diverse school in Los Angeles out of 80. Indeed, to this day, I point out the diversity in my elementary and middle school experience as a building block for my character as an adult. It made a huge impact, and I hope it will impact my children and my sister's children as they go through the Weisburn schools. But recognition and representation matter, and it's unreasonable to continue to allow representation of Peter Burnett, a racist and exclusionist in our community and to our kids. Plus, it's offensive to the memory of R.H. Dana, who was an abolitionist, cared about improving the lot of the common man, and was stoutly anti-flogging. Many other schools in the country have changed their names from Peter Burnett already. Here is information about one in Long Beach and one in San Francisco. I'm sure this isn't the sort of thing that can be changed unilaterally, so please help to advise next steps. Should I petition the board? How would I do that? Should I fill out a special district form? Should I start a mass email campaign? Please let me know. Thank you for your help, and I hope you're staying healthy and well during this tumultuous time. Sylvia Katskayar. Sylvia asked that I show her daughter's letter, so I will share that screen. I know the board has a lot on their plate in the light of the coronavirus and plans for the fall school year, but I would like to ask for your consideration to rename Peter Burnett School immediately. His acts of white supremacy do not reflect the values and attitudes of our school community. He is not one of our kids. He is not one our kids should memorialize by bearing his name. Please consider Mary Burnett Talbert as a replacement. These are very tough times and we want a better tomorrow for our children. This change would be such a timely, powerful, and symbolic act. Deborah Goldman, I know there are tremendous financial issues involved in changing the school's name, but if it helps educate our community and brings healing about, it's very much worth considering. It would be a strong anti-racist act. It's also possible that we could raise money to offset the costs of changing the school's name with fundraising efforts. Ann Carlson, WUSD's leadership in creating a swift, unequivocal response to promoting equal justice for all races in the wake of the murder of George Floyd has been commendable. But if that support is to be taken seriously by students and the community, we cannot continue to have an elementary school named for Peter Burnett, 1807 to 1895. California's unpopular and historically obscure first governor, whose legacy was an appalling white supremacist agenda that included some of the worst massacres of California's Native American population, a role in allowing slavery in Oregon, as well as promoting exclusion laws against Blacks in both Oregon and California. The support of the federal 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which all but shut down Chinese immigration. She quotes www.calmatters.org/commentary/Native American genocide. In fact, Governor Newsom recently called out Burnett's white supremacy in the first paragraph of his June 2019 apology for the state's historical wrongdoing to Native Americans. www.gov.ca.gov/WP content/uploads/2019/6.18.19 executive order PDF. Peter Burnett would have hated our diverse community and all that it stands for. How can we ask our students of all backgrounds to study under his name? Other school districts in both San Jose and Long Beach have removed Peter Burnett's name from their schools because of his hateful legacy. The time for WUSD to do the same is now. We cannot create the world of equal justice our children deserve if we fetishize the white supremacists of history. Kaylee Weatherford, as a mother of 3 children in the Wiseburn School District, I wholeheartedly support a name change for our great school. How can we honestly tell our children, particularly our children of color, that they are welcome and equal in our schools while memorializing a man who did not even treat their ancestors as human beings? The time is now to show our children we will no longer allow a glorification of the kinds of racist policies that Peter Burnett enacted. There are literally millions of Californians that have worked for justice, peace, and equality, and yet we have chosen one failed white supremacist to honor under whose name our children study. My heart breaks for the Black or Asian or Native American student who Googles the man their school was named after to find that he didn't even believe he had a right to exist in California. And in the case of Native Americans, actually work towards the genocide of their entire population. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou. We know better. Let's do better. It is quite easy to find information on the life of Burnett. Here is one segment I'd like to highlight. I learned that throughout his political career, Burnett clung to a bizarre and deadly fantasy that the American West would be populated almost exclusively by whites. In Burnett's vision, there would be no Blacks, no Chinese, and no Native Americans. Burnett's racism, along with several tone-deaf blunders, explains why he was, until recently, largely forgotten by history. He was an embarrassment. Many of the few schools that took his name as the first governor have changed their names as his policies have become known. Among them is the former Burnett Academy in San Jose, the city where Burnett and his family settled. Sydney Weatherford. I'm going into 3rd grade at Peter Burnett School, and I don't think it should be named after a racist. We should name it after somebody who did something great for people who were treated unfairly. Aaron Keller. I support the idea to change the name of Peter Burnett, given the history as racist white supremacist who tried to enact those opinions, luckily in many cases unsuccessfully, on our state. Scott Wood. Dear board members, I support my grandson Levi Meeker's proposal to change the name of Peter H. Burnett. As a result of our effort to find out who Burnett was, just curiosity, Levi and I were shocked to discover some dark California history. Burnett, first governor of the state in 1850, was an overt and zealous racist who promoted a law banning African Americans from California. Needless to say, June 2020 is an ideal time to name this school after a hero of racial justice and civil rights. Thank you. Rebecca Hamburg, Cappy. Dear WUSD Board of Trustees, I am writing to you as a mother, concerned member of the community, direct descendant of Native Americans, and proud Latina woman. We are living in a critical moment in the history of this country. As we grapple with COVID-19 claiming lives and disseminating livelihoods, we also now find ourselves in the midst of even greater horrors. Yet another set of killings of Black people at the hands of law enforcement and racist vigilantes have brought the white supremacy at the root of our society into stark relief. Courageous activists have taken to the streets around the country, even the globe, and right here in Wiseburn to demand accountability. No matter what we look like or where we come from, we all want to know we can make it home to our families at the end of the day. During the local protest this week, one protester held a sign that read, "Do you know that our school is named for a racist Peter Burnett?" Those words are true. Peter Hardeman Burnett was the first elected governor of California and a founder of Sacramento, but he was also a former slaveholder with a strong desire for a whites-only California. Here is a brief history of his racist exploits. In 1843, Burnett led a wagon train to Oregon. He was elected to the legislature where he took the lead in passing a law that excluded African Americans from the state. The law allowed whites to keep slaves for 3 years, after which they would be freed and required to leave. Any Black person who refused to leave would be whipped, earning it the nickname of Peter Hardeman Burnett's Lash Law. It was rescinded, though other Black exclusionary laws were later passed. In 1848, Burnett followed Tales of Gold to California, where he befriended John Sutter Jr. and helped him found Sacramento. Burnett was later elected governor of California. He tried again to pass laws banning Black people from the state, but was unsuccessful. Burnett also helped fuel the enslavement and genocide of California's indigenous people. He signed the perversely named Act for the Government and Protection of Indians. This law enabled whites to force native people from their lands into indentured servitude. While Burnett was governor, U.S. cavalry troops slaughtered Native Californians, including Pomo tribal members, in the Bloody Island Massacre. Burnett later became a California Supreme Court justice and was sitting on the bench that ordered that fugitive slave Archie Lee be returned to his enslaver in violation of California's Constitution. Excerpt from Gold Chains, The History of California, The History of Slavery in California, White Supremacist in Chief, ACLU of Northern California, available at www.aclunc.org. He was also responsible for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. The time has come to relegate Peter Burnett to the ash heap of history and remove his name from the Wiseburn Elementary School that presently bears his name. Other schools across California have recently done the same and renamed schools once bearing his name. CEG successful efforts in Long Beach, www.presstelegram.com/2014/0902/Long Beach School Board renames 2 schools after minority women, and San Jose, www.sanjosespotlight.com/Burnett Middle School to be renamed Olone Middle School. We need to lead by example for our children and find a name that is more reflective of the values, civic ideals, and educational goals of the school. Several worthy names have been suggested by community members, including Maria Guadalupe Evangelina de Lopez de Lauther, a Los Angeles suffragist and educator you can read about here, www.my.lwv.org/California/Diablo-Valley/article/suffragist. You need to meet Maria Guadalupe Evangelina. I request that the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent immediately initiate a naming review process and take the steps necessary to make Wiseburn a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable place by removing Peter Burnett's disgraced name from one of our elementary schools. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Maria Ferrante, I am writing to you as a Wiseburn parent and concerned resident. Recently, I learned of the racist views and policies of California's first governor, Peter Hardeman Burnett. This man espoused cruel and demeaning policies which have no place in our community. Wiseburn is a community of rich diversity and inclusion for which we should all be proud. We should rename this school for an individual who represents our values of inclusion, diversity, and equity of opportunity. Therefore, I request that the Board of Trustees and Superintendent immediately initiate a renaming review process to remove Peter Burnett's name and choose a name the community can be proud of. Thank you for your consideration. Julie Hammer, I would like to request the name of Peter Burnett Elementary be changed. Governor Newsom has discuss the many ways that Burnett's actions, genocidal treatment, and ideology does not represent the California of today. I have a comment by Judith Darasek. She submitted 3 separate comments for the board's consideration. The first comment addresses the name change of Peter Burnett. I don't want my property taxes going to support a school name for a racist. By the way, who decided to name it after him? The second comment addresses tearing down the old Dana site. It's summer 2020, and you said last year it would be torn down summer 2020. And the third comment discusses alleged use of fireworks by a board member. Being that this is out of the scope of the school district jurisdiction, we will not be reading the comment into the record. Helene Debenuel, as a parent of WUSD students and member of the community, I request that the board considers changing the name of Peter Burnett Elementary School, as have already done at least 2 other California schools. Peter Burnett's racist views and actions are in direct contrast with our district and neighborhood's values. In light of the recent event, this appears to be the right time to consider changing the name of the school. Thank you for considering another name that will be more fully respect our demographics and current values of respect and equality for all. Maria Flores Acosta. My family is very fortunate to live within the boundaries of the Weisburn Unified School District. We have seen many positive changes over the years, including the unification of the district. One change that needs to take place is the renaming of Peter Burnett Elementary School. My child attended Peter Burnett Elementary School for 3 years. During that time, it was disappointing to find out that the school's namesake did not espouse the values we try to instill in our children. My suggestion for a name change is Mary Burnett Talbert. Our school district needs to listen to the current civil rights movement and effect positive change by renaming Peter Burnett Elementary School. Thank you for your time and consideration. Quinn Weatherford. Next year, I will be a 5th grader at Peter Burnett Elementary School, and I am concerned about our school's name. Having been a student at Burnett for 2 years, I don't think that the school's name reflects its ideals. I find that Burnett has a caring and kind school environment, while its name suggests that it is a racist and unequal school. Our school needs to change its name. Kathleen Gore. Dear Board of Trustees and Superintendent Silvers, we join the other families you have heard from to request that the Board of Trustees and the superintendent immediately initiate a naming review process and take the steps necessary to remove Peter Burnett's name from one of our elementary schools. As you have likely learned, Peter Burnett was a racist and former slaveholder who had a desire for a whites-only California, where parents of 3 racially mixed children, one of whom currently attends PBE, and the other 2 who will in the 21-22 school year. We chose to raise our children in this community and in this school district because of the rich cultural diversity and acceptance. Honoring a racist such as Peter Burnett by keeping his name on the school does not align with WUSD's more inclusive and culturally diverse community. The time has come to remove Peter Burnett's name from Weisburn Elementary School on 138th Street. Other schools across California have recently done the same and renamed schools once bearing his name, including successful efforts in Long Beach. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Amanis Sanati Morgan. Dear Board of Trustees and Weisburn School District Board, I am writing to you today as a deeply concerned mother, community member, and proud Iranian Mexican California born and raised woman. Although this has been a year of chaos for many, this is also a year of awakening and change, as evidenced by the persistent action in our communities and beyond. Fortunately, science will guide us through this pandemic, and we will find a way to live comfortably in time. However, the most recent crisis triggered by yet another string of Black people being senselessly murdered will be guided by our actions. It is up to us as individuals and community members in society to be the change our world desperately needs. In recent discussion with other community members, it was brought to my attention that Peter H. Burnett was a racist. When I did my research on the issue, I learned how deeply true this statement was and became horrified to think that this person's name is adorned on our elementary school. One doesn't need to dig deep to find the research. The secret is out. The question is, what will we do with this information? Governor Newsom called attention to his character a year ago in his apology to California's genocidal treatment of Native Americans, as Burnett infamously said in a speech as a governor, that a war of extermination will continue to be waged between the races until the Indian race becomes extinct must be expected. While we cannot anticipate this result, but with painful regret, the inevitable destiny of the race is beyond the power or wisdom of man to avert. This wasn't only a part of his speech, this ideology was reflected in his actions as he was responsible for the Act for the Government and Protection of Indians, which was a law that enabled whites to force Native American people from their lands into indentured servitude. While Burnett was governor, U.S. cavalry troops slaughtered Native Californians, including Pomo tribal members, in the Bloody Island Massacre. With regards to African Americans, as a former slaveholder moving west, he came with the same ideals in pursuit of a whites-only American West. Also from the noted article above, in 1843, Burnett led a wagon train to Oregon. He was elected to the legislature where he took the lead in passing a law that excluded African Americans from the state. He was elected to the legislature where he took the lead in passing a law that excluded African Americans from the state. The law allowed whites to keep slaves for 3 years, after which they would be freed and required to leave. Any Black person who refused to leave would be whipped, earning it the nickname of Peter Hardeman Burnett's Lash Law. These are only a few of the disturbing details of Burnett's effect on our state's history, enough to know that this is not the character of someone who reflects the morals and values we strive for today. At this point, it would behoove us to relegate him to the collection of our shameful past and pick someone new who embodies our values today. I strongly urge us to reconsider the type of leader we want to be for our students and community today and moving forward. Other schools have already accomplished this exact feat in Long Beach and San Francisco. The Burnett Child Development Center, a preschool in a predominantly Black San Francisco neighborhood, had been named for Burnett. However, when Burnett's racist positions were rediscovered, the school was renamed in 2011 to the Leola M. Havard Early Education School in honor of San Francisco's first African-American principal.
Wendy, if I could interrupt, we're at 2 minutes. Are you almost complete or should we wrap it?
I am not. So there
Okay.
are several others. There is one other comment that is in opposition of changing the name, and there is one short comment of varying nature that I could read. May I do that?
If you could read those real quick and then the rest we could read on the following meeting.
I will do that.
Mhm.
This is from Jill Marshall. I'd like to share my thoughts against changing the name of Peter Burnett. I know the meeting is today, however, I cannot be there in person, and I strongly feel considering a name change should not be the focus at this time. I strongly feel we need to work on getting our kids back to school and giving them some normalcy from the unfortunate year no child should have to endure at their age. I would like to protest against this as a community coming out of the same storm, different boats, and get back on our feet from COVID. I think the focus needs to be on our children getting back into school safely and preserve their mental well-being. In no way, shape, or form does this name at all represent our school. Our schools are known in the community to be top schools with phenomenal scores and education track, fair, and exceptional. Our schools promote success and diversity. Our schools wholeheartedly emphasize a positive environment, respect, and celebrate every holiday and nationality. They encourage kids to share their heritage, which I absolutely love to see and read and appreciate. It is truly fascinating learning cultures and traditions. Kids love this. It's encouraged my family to celebrate more. Our schools are very sensitive to kids who have lost a parent, broken homes, and have done nothing more but show support and try to help families to build confidence in each child. This name has nothing to do with what our schools represent, and I feel like this request to change it is making it represent negative and labeling our school as something it is clearly not. On another side, this will also cost our community, and I, for one, cannot afford to continue paying extra when I'm struggling to put food on the table as a single income home and recover. That's my personal problem, and if changing the name is that important, then maybe take up thousands of dollars collection from supporters. It isn't reasonable, especially since our school treats kids equal. They keep them safe for us during the day and offer resources they can aid to our children, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a parent with 2 of my kids that have been targeted for different things, one in which another school district was left with a concussion, another told he just may not be smart enough to be here. I can go on, but to know my kids are safe within the Weisburn district means more than changing a name. Changing the name will in no way better what our school can offer our kids education. I'm pretty sure the majority of us did not even know who P. Burnett was in the early 1800s during this unfortunate time. Thank you for your time. And there was from Tatiana Williams, Return to School Request 2020, created April 16, 2020. 1, anti-racism taught. 2, anti-sexism taught. 3, anti-bullying taught. 4, more counselors brought in. 5, no behavior discipline, all PTSD for 2020. 6, no lunch debt, all past debt erased. 7, mandatory art class to help kids express themselves through art, can be parent instructed with volunteers. 8, field trips. 9, fun Fridays where kids get the last 2 hours to have fun. No one gets left out. And 10, everyone passes their grade this year in 2020.
Israel, I'd like to request to see if we can read the names in of those people that submitted comments but did not get a chance to read all of their comments. Maybe we can take those up as you mentioned in the next board meeting.
I can
Wendy?
include those, yes. The names are Kyla and Kenny Morgan, Anna Bazarko, Anika Finn, Christina Pickard, and Alexis Alarm.
Thank you. I want to thank our community for all the great comments, well thought out and well written. Appreciate it. I know that this board will consider them along with the others. And we do listen, and we will follow up on this issue. It hits close to home for us, so we understand. Thank you very much. Moving on with the agenda. From the board, Neil, would you like to go?
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Thank you, Israel. Good evening, everyone. I want to take this time to share some words that are important to me. We say the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of every board meeting. The last line says, "with liberty and justice for all." Now, these are inspiring aspirational words, but the reality in this country falls well short of this ideal. This is not the forum for a larger governmental policy or dialogue, and I do believe we at Wiseburn have a role to play in the social justice movement. I believe we must continue to listen and learn and bring the power of education to these issues well into the future, many of which were so eloquently shared by the public comments. I believe as board members, educators, and a district overall, we must do our best to be aware of our implicit biases and continue to bring understanding, fairness, equity to our decisions and actions. So thank you to all our public comments. They were thoughtful, researched, value-driven, and eloquent, inspiring even. One such action, which I agree, is to remove Peter Burnett, a documented racist, as was shared so many times, as the namesake of our elementary school on 138th Street. And I know there are arguments opposed to this, including precedent and tradition, and I want to be sure we continue to honor those who attended, taught, or contributed to this great school. I believe, however, we must stand for our values, including celebrating inclusion and diversity, and not have a namesake who represents the opposite. So as has been shared, I agree with all those who said the time has come to remove his name. Dr. Silvers, fellow board members, I support the initiative that Roger mentioned for a process to pursue a more worthy namesake and remove all references to the current name, referring to it as 138th Street School or some other neutral name until a more befitting one can be determined. I'm unequivocally proud of our diversity here at Wiseburn. As was shared, we are second among 80 school districts in an already diverse Los Angeles. It's one of our greatest strengths, and I believe differences of backgrounds, opinion, and experiences enrich us all. They help make us a better people and collectively a better community. I encourage us all to ensure that Wiseburn continue to do all it can, not only to promote liberty and justice, but also understanding, equity, and opportunity for all. This has been a time of learning and reflection for me and perhaps for many of you, and I freely admit the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know and how much more work I have to do. So in that vein, I want to thank Dr. Silvers for the program with Dr. Alan Green of USC on how to speak to our children and each other about the anti-racism movement. I want to also thank Dr. Silvers, the cabinet, participating parents, teachers, staff, and community members for their perspectives and wisdoms in the RAP meetings, those meetings in which we're dialoguing on what's the best way for the school to operate and or open in the fall. I will share, I remain personally overwhelmingly concerned about the health and safety of our teachers, students, family, and community. And while we still need to balance effective educational practices and continue to listen to the needs of all stakeholders, all these factors in the balance will continue to be at the forefront in my mind as the direction I will support in the fall. Finally, a shout out to our graduates and our students as a whole. This has been a difficult year for you. Your dedication and commitment is well worth recognizing and celebrating. Congratulations to you. We're living in historic times with a confluence of two epic events. I truly hope and encourage all of us in the Wiseburn community to continue to support one another, to work together, to help bring about lasting existential positive change. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Mr. Martinez, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Israel, and well said, Neil. I certainly want to thank the public as well for the community as well for their public comments. Certainly inclusion and diversity is the strength of our district and this community. And I am glad that Roger motioned the agenda tonight to move forward with an exploratory committee that I think is extremely important to obtain input from all our stakeholders in this process. So the journey will start for a name change. And I know that with the input of the community, it will be certainly reflective of the values of our community. With that said, I wanted to also be real brief in the spirit of time. It's been a busy week with a master planning process that we've been going through and really envisioning the facility needs in the future for our district. We've also, as Neil mentioned, are involved with RAP, which is really the reopening of the schools. We had our third meeting just prior to this board meeting. And again, we have 55 to 60 community stakeholders involved in this process, which has been wonderful. I will take that group anywhere and take on any challenge. And this is quite a challenge on the reopening of the schools. So I certainly want to thank everyone involved in that. And I know that Blake will talk a little bit more about that, so I don't want to dwell on it. And then last but not least, what I wanted to take the opportunity was really to congratulate the fifth graders, the eighth graders on their promotion, and obviously the 12th graders on their graduation. As Neil said, difficult year for them. I also wanted to extend a congratulations to really all students, including our staff and administration, which have had a challenge through this transition period. It's been quite a challenge, something that we have never gone through before. But as I've mentioned before, together we'll get through this and we will move forward. So again, I wanted to just say congratulations to everyone during this period, and certainly wanted to wish everyone a nice summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Banuelos?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mora. I'd like to have a few comments today as well. First, I would like to congratulate and thank all of our students, parents, and teachers for all of their courage and perseverance for the 2019 to 2020 year. Wow, what an unbelievable year, something that is absolutely unprecedented. I'd like to thank everyone for working so closely together to ensure that we can provide the best education that we possibly can for all of our students, and by working together. No easy feat. It is something that no easy feat to accomplish, but it's something that we're definitely at the forefront of our thoughts, and especially as we look into next year and all the different changing landscapes in terms of budget and what to do with safety. I'd like to just share with everybody that safety is of the utmost importance for us in order to make the decision of whether or not to return back to school next year and what that looks like. We want to make sure that we do that in a safe manner. Very concerned as well with regards to the costs and the impact to the budget. I know we have a presentation later today by our CBO, Dave Wilson, and Dr. Blake Silvers. Looking forward to learning a little bit more, or a lot more, about that. I've been very active as well, trying to educate myself in terms of the landscape for the budget and what's going on, attending CSBA webinars and some virtual conferences. Earlier today, I saw and read an article that the American Federation of Teachers put out in terms of what it could potentially cost to open school for next year. And they proposed or came up with a figure that is astonishing, of $116.5 billion for the state of California. That equates to an average of $1.2 million shortfall per school and $2,300 less per student. That's just not doable, to say it mildly. That is a huge impact that we're looking to see how we can mitigate that cost, and with keeping everybody safe. CSBA is working hard as well. That's the California School Board Association, in being an advocacy group to the state legislature and to the governor's office, advocating for additional funding. I look forward to attending many more webinars and staying informed on that. I also wanted to say thank you to all the people that made comments with regards to the name of Peter Burnett. I know it's not an easy topic, an easy item to discuss, but I think the timing is right for us to have those courageous conversations that are inclusive and ultimately result in promoting diversity. I think that's something that enriches all of us. As I'd like to commend Dr. Goldman. Neil, thank you for your comments so positively and eloquently stated. I really appreciate that. Very nicely done. Thank you very much. And to my colleagues on the board, thank you for supporting this this request to add the item. I know you deeply hold those values and beliefs as well of our community. So I wanted to commend everybody on the board and our administration. Thank you very much. And that's all I have. Thank you, Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Banuelos. Ms. Kaneda?
Yes, thanks, Israel. And thanks to our community, our board, our staff, our state, our country for having the freedom and the opportunity to speak what we believe to be important and to listen to each other and to hear the words and the meaning behind the words that we speak. Those of you who are students of history will think about the fact that our nation is the longest lived democracy ever in the history of the world. Over 200 years of a democratic nation where we work together to solve our problems. We may not always like people elected in office. We may prefer to have someone else. We may not like the laws we have, but the methodology that we've implemented in our country is long-lasting, long-lived, and healthy. And I appreciate that our community feels comfortable speaking their minds, speaking what's important to them, and offering us an opportunity as a board to act on those thoughts and to share our thoughts with them as well. I want to thank my fellow board members for their courage, for their commitment to volunteer their time to support our community and to support our schools and learning. Many of us, I believe, on this board have immigrants as either parents or were immigrants ourselves. I am one of them as well. My father was a naturalized citizen. I'm first generation. He was from Eastern Europe. He had no formal education, zip. It was very important to him as he raised me and my sisters, and we have in turn raised our own families, to value education and to know how important education is to avoid ignorance and to make our way in the world. It's one of the main reasons why I love being able to be part of this board and appreciate the opportunity the community has given to me to support education and to support the future of our children. I value my responsibilities on the board. I truly value this board, and I value I support the values for which I was raised. I have a mixed race family. My two younger children are of mixed race. They went to Weisburn schools. One of the reasons we were so happy here is because diversity and inclusion is a fundamental value. There's not even a question about it. And how special is that? And we're working to support that. We're working to continue that. And we will work as a board to meet the goals that our community has offered us this evening through the public comments and through those challenges that we already identified: health, happiness, health in the pursuit of happiness, right? As we have Thomas Jefferson wrote. And we don't need to delve into Thomas Jefferson's history because there might not be some pretty things we see there either. But but we are a nation, we are a democratic nation, and we are proud of that. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. Obviously, a lot on our plates, a lot going on. I do want to shout out to the graduates, both 12th grade and 8th grade promotion. Very difficult year to graduate. but I hope that you take the next step forward and take on the challenges you have in the past and make the best of that difficult situation, which you're in and we are all in. So I know we have a big budget situation ahead of us, and planning for the fall is another large item. So we do have a lot of items on our plate, and we'll be working hard this summer to accomplish those goals. So thank you to everybody for your support and your help. Moving on in the agenda, from the Chief Business Official, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Two topics for discussion tonight, and I'd ask Wendy if she could bring up the presentation. All right. So just a brief overview of the governor's budget proposal and how that's differing from the legislature's. So on the left, you see the, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So on the left, we have the 2019-20 budget. And so right now we're projecting LCFF revenue of approximately 21.7 million. The governor has basically said we're going to hold school districts harmless in 1920, with the exception of there'll be a cash deferral. So instead of getting your June state money in June, you'll get it in July. And for Wiseburn, that's about approximately $900,000 that we're going to shift from receiving in June to July. We were able to mitigate this internally through internal fund borrowing. So we borrowed approximately $1 million from our fund 20.1, which is the Measure CL set aside. Once that July apportionment comes in, we'll go ahead and transfer that money back to the appropriate fund. What the governor proposes on the right-hand side of your screen is for 2021 for next year. And he said, Governor Newsom said across the board, a 10% reduction in LCFF funding for Wiseburn. That's about a $2.2 million reduction, bringing us to about $19.5 million. And he also is going to defer additional monies. So he's projecting about half of April's apportionment, all of May and all of June into the following fiscal year. There hasn't been a specified date or month. The sooner, obviously, the better. It could, the sooner like July, but there's been no specifics. It could be as late as, August, September. And so that really puts the district in a cash shortage. And so we'll be looking at, if this is what is approved, come June 30th, we'll be looking at probably doing a tax revenue anticipation note, which is borrowing cash from outside vendors. And we frequently did this in the Great Recession. We did it twice a year. We would do a July 1 trans and then a mid-year trans so that we could borrow money across fiscal years. And so, we'll obviously be monitoring this and making plans to mitigate any kind of cash deferrals that we may experience. Wendy, next slide, please.
Dave, can I ask a quick question? I assume there's a cost with the trans. Is that an interest rate?
Yes, there is a cost. Depending on what the interest rates are at the time and what the lenders are giving, there is definitely a cost to that.
More hit. Thank you.
Right. So the state's basically putting their cash shortages on the district's back, as they did during the Great Recession as well. And so finding solutions to the loss of state revenue. So a 10% reduction, again, is about $2.2 million. And this is just for LCFF. We had talked previously, I believe, at our last board meeting. I'm taking a more conservative route and saying, I expect a 10% reduction across all revenue sources, not just LCFF, but we also have lottery funds that we receive. We also have other local funds that we receive for renting out our facilities, our 1% oversight that we get for Da Vinci. If we're distance learning next year or next fall, we're not gonna be able to rent out our facilities. So I think a more appropriate budgeting would be a 10% reduction across all revenue sources, which gets us closer to about a $3.3 million to $3.2 million deficit. And so the 2.2 is just LCFF revenues.
Dave, excuse
yes.
me, for purposes of people listening to this meeting, could you give the definition of the LCFF acronym?
Absolutely. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Local control funding formula. It was brought in by Governor Jerry Brown when he was first elected to office, replacing the revenue limit formula. And it was a way to make funding more equitable across all school districts. And so it's the local control funding formula.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So again, we're talking about this $2.2 million. How could we mitigate that? So we're going to receive about approximately $240,000 in CARES Act, and there was additional $4.4 billion that the governor proposed would be allocated to districts that only receive concentration grant funding. And concentration grant funding is districts that receive, or I'm sorry, that have a population, an unduplicated population of 55% or more, and that's English language learners, socioeconomic disadvantaged, and foster youth. We're right now about 40%, so we would not qualify for that. But the legislature had said that's very unfair to the districts not receiving concentration grant money, and we would like to see that allocated by the LCFF base grant. And so if that's the case, the district would be in line to receive approximately $950,000 to another $1 million on top of the $240,000. Again, a lot of negotiations back and forth between the governor and the Assembly and Senate. Obviously, we would prefer to see that money allocated on a LCFF base rather than concentration. We're going to look at the playbook that we had from the Great Recession. We're going to consider furlough days, whether they be instructional furlough days or non-instructional furlough days. Reductions in force, is that possible? Maybe across the board reduction of salaries. We're also going to look at, can we trim the fat anywhere else? Is there any low hanging fruit? Reductions in expenses and contracts. I don't know how successful we'll be in this. I think that, if we come back, we're going to have a lot of other purchases necessary: PPE, sanitizer, safety, professional development training. If we're distance learning, there's one sliver of hope. The governor has proposed to reduce the required CalSTRS and CalPERS employer paid contributions. And so right now we're expecting that's going to save the district about $70,000 as the STRS has gone down and the PERS didn't increase as much as originally requested. If there's deferrals, we can also look not only internally, we talked about a trans, we also have other funds we can borrow from, which I talked about. We've already borrowed $1 million from our fund 20.1. We have about $526,000 in fund 17, and that's a reserve for things other than capital facilities. So fund 17, about $526,000, our fund 20, and this is the reserve for post-employment benefits. We have about 1.2 million. And then a fund 20.1, which is about $1.6 million balance. And that's our Measure CL set aside. Wendy, next slide, please. And so again, just this is kind of a recap of what we just talked about. So about $2.2 million in a loss of LCFF funds. Solution options, CARES Act, if you include the 950 to $1 million plus the 240, we're looking at about 1.2 million. One furlough day, an instructional furlough day, would save the district about 115,000. A non-instructional furlough day, about 90,000. Reduction in forces, it just depends on what that number that we have to look at, and obviously these things have to be negotiated. So that's kind of in question. A salary reduction of 1% is about $200,000. We've talked about, what a 1% increase is, about $225,000 the last look at. But because STRS went down or is projected to go down, I think our 1% goes down a little bit less. So I'm thinking it's projecting it's about $200,000. Reduce expenses, I'm not sure if we're going to have any luck there. And then again, there's been some help in the STRS and PERS. Instead of the district having to pay a certain percentage, they've lowered that employer paid percentage. So we're expect about a $70,000 savings.
So Dave, when you talk about salary reduction, that's every employee in the district. What is that again?
Yes, so that would have to be negotiated. But when we've negotiated before and on the table, there's been 1% or 2%, and that 1% for this last year was about $225,000 across the board. And this is just general fund. I'm not talking about cafeteria fund or CDC fund. because LCFF, local control funding formula, only impacts the general fund.
Okay,
And so that 1%, because STRS has been reduced, I'm projecting about a $200,000 savings if you did it across the board, everybody in general fund.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Wendy, I think that might be it.
Dave, I have a quick
Yep.
question. You could,
Yes, sir.
'cause that's just the same thing again too. So if you could go back to that first slide, Wendy, you don't mind, it was yeah, that one there. So Dave, could you just do a little, so just kind of talk about the politics that's happening now. So we're seeing some politics happening with the legislature. They're currently looking at not basically at fully funding schools. And so do you want to share a little bit about that based on this, how that can impact the district?
Absolutely. So in my years of being in this business, I've never seen a more divided or more different proposal from the governor from differing from the Senate and the Assembly. Usually they're almost lock and step with some small differences, but the governor's saying 10% cut and deferrals, and the legislature has counter proposed that and said, we're going to hold districts harmless. In fact, we're going to fully fund the 2.31 cost of living adjustment. And the onus is on the federal government to give the state more help. And so if there's no more federal funds or no more additional federal funds come September 1, they'll start making or looking at deferrals of cash beginning October 1. Still fully funding you. They wouldn't reduce programs. They would defer cash to sometime in the year. Not a lot of specifics yet coming out, but it could be, we could have cash deferrals as soon as October 1st. And that really puts the district, not only Weisbord, but basically all school districts in a predicament of, having to borrow cash and the cost of borrowing cash, and really kicking the curb, kicking the can down the curb, because if this continues into the next year, you still have to repay yourself for 2021. But then, if the problem persists, you're still going to have budget issues in the following year as well. So I commend the legislature, trying to keep school districts, fully funded. But it puts a lot of most school districts in a big predicament. Obviously, the August layoff window is off the table if they fully fund the COLA. And the deferrals could be in excess of $5.3 billion. And again, we don't know the specifics of that, but it's very disconcerting that cash could be a huge issue for all districts.
Dave, if I may, just try to get my head around this, and let me make a statement, see if I've got this right. If I've got it right, say yes. If not, we'll just move on. But to try and get my head around this, as I understand it, for most school districts, and basically us too, 85% of our costs are people. That leaves 15% to run the district. So if we lose 10% of our funding, that 15% is our discretionary funding. We lose 10% of that, we're losing 2/3 of our discretionary funding, which means we're trying to run our district on 5%. That's just not possible. So I think if that's right, that's how I've got my head around why this is so devastating. It's because we are taking away 2/3 of our discretionary money effectively. And that's just not a way a school can operate.
Completely agree. And you compound that with, if we come back in the fall, buying more safety equipment, more PPE. So cutting funding, but then expecting districts to purchase more safety equipment. It's troubling times for sure.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Dave and Blake, for putting this information in graphic form. The discussion is so much more meaningful to have the backdrop of the graphics rather than a spreadsheet of numbers. So anyway, I want to thank you for that, because I know there's a lot of effort to put information, to make information simpler is a lot harder than keeping it complicated. And I really appreciate the graphics, Dave. Thank you. Thanks to your team, Blake. Thank you. Really appreciate this way of describing this information.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. One last, if that's all the questions on that topic, I have one additional topic.
Go ahead.
So the board recently asked, what are our existing construction liabilities for, obviously the high school construction. So I did some numbers for Gensler, the architect. I think we still have a liability of anywhere between $150,000 to $180,000, and that's to close out phase one. Could be high by about $50,000, and that's earmarked specifically for kitchen work. So if the kitchen is off the table, maybe we're looking at $100,000 liability to close up phase one. DSA closeout, Department of State Architect, anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. Again, we're still not closed out on phase one as we're going through some air balancing issues on the fourth floor. DTSC, the Department of Toxic Substances Control, anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. And they kind of have interesting invoices. So they'll send you an invoice 6 months after the fact saying, here's the work we did 6 months ago, please pay us. And so I think for the most part, that work is coming to an end. And now it's going to be more of ongoing monitoring, which is going to become an operational cost for Da Vinci as they operate it's no longer a construction cost, but more of an ongoing general operating cost. And then I threw out a number, $100,000. This is potential air balancing for the fourth floor. Could be offset by Gensler. I think we've talked about asking Gensler, maybe it was a design flaw. Can we ask Gensler for some assistance on that to help mitigate some of those costs? And then I put in about $50,000 of that 100,000 just for oops, what comes up in the next year or two that could still be saying, oh, that was construction related. We're still growing into the building. We're still figuring the building out. So I just wanted to be conservative and put a number there. So anywhere, I think our liabilities, our existing liabilities, anywhere from $270,000 to about $315,000. And we have about just under $800,000 unencumbered in our other bond funds and developer fees.
Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
Moving forward, from the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Dr. Nisha Dugal.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just want to let you know the last couple days, I've been looking at listening and learning from our staff and getting to know the staff that I'll be working with in the future, as well as the best part has been being on the RAP committee and really getting to know some of our parents at a different level of their thinking and their strategic partnership, as well as we look to reopening our schools. And finally, continuing to work with Kathy and Mary Ring on that transition plan. I've got a few more weeks with them, and so I'm going to take up every chance and opportunity I get to know more about the programming they've done and how I can better serve the students of Weisburn. So that's what's been happening on the student services side. Any questions?
Thank you. All right. Continuing on from the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Service, Dr. Eileen Harbeck.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to just take a moment to thank our school staffs. We always say that everyone that works on a campus is a teacher, and every room's a classroom. And I think that with distance learning, we are all tasked with so many new jobs and new learnings. And, Weisburn didn't miss a beat as we close schools so seamlessly and collect our musical instruments and return all our books and do all that good work with promotions. It's just outstanding. And this was reflected in a student survey that we put out just a week ago. We had just over 550 responses from our 5th through 8th graders. I can assure you that they were both thoughtful and complimentary. It is clear that our students love Weisburn and they love their teachers. And these results will certainly help us as we continue down the road planning for distance learning. So we'll be bringing those results back to you probably at another time. We also have a parent survey we're going to compare it to. And then, of course, we had a previous staff survey as well. So taking those three into mind, we'll be moving forward. And I just want to share with you that I know in talking to our principals that many of our families want to continue learning online through the summer with their children and having options for that. So on every website, the Ed Services Department has provided options for families to access some programs that we're leaving open for the summer in reading, math, also enrichment programs. So those are available on every website this summer. Those who needed to borrow Chromebooks were asked if they needed to keep them during the summer. We've received about 1/4 of them back. They didn't want to keep them, but the rest are keeping them for the summer to go on with this online learning. So all good, took a lot of participation, but just a huge thank you to the entire Weisburn staff and to keeping education moving forward in our district. So thank you.
Dr. Harbeck. All right, moving forward, our superintendent, Dr. Blake Silvers.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. There are definitely quite a few topics to review as we gear up for these final days of school. I did want to share, as was mentioned earlier today, we convened our RAP committee for the third time. The meetings continue to provide us with information needed to consider our options for school next year. It's extremely complex, and I don't want to underestimate the feelings of trepidation and uncertainty that many of us feel regarding the pandemic, not only the pandemic itself, but also what that means for our schools next year, particularly the health and safety of our community. The few things I'd like to note, the board to note and the community to note, that we are expecting the LA County Department of Health to move us forward to stage 3 at some point in the next couple of days. That may come from the governor's office in the next couple of days. This essentially will give schools the green light to open with safety precautions, social distancing, et cetera. We're also expecting the LA County Department of Health, Dr. Farrar, to issue a new set of health orders. The recently released state recommendations were very vague. They addressed a wide range of counties, a wide range of circumstances. They weren't specific to LA County. So the LA Department of Public Health will be more specific. And LACO's done some work advocating for more flexibility related to the number of students that could be on campus and other health related issues. Gives me a bit of pause, considering the circumstances and the fact that we still don't have a vaccine or a cure, any type of treatment for COVID-19. Last Thursday, we convened the Facilities Master Planning Committee for the 5th and final time with the public meetings. I want to thank this board for the input that helped LPA produce what appears to be a really nice plan looking to the future of Wiseburn. I'm excited for the thoughtfulness of our community, the advocacy for continuous improvement in our district, and just an overall focus on positive change. I'd like to thank our staff, students, families, community, as we end this atypical school year, to say the least, tomorrow. We've seen none like it. You know, I believe that it brought to the best out of our community, the hard work that's gone into the change of instructional practices, of grading policies, material collection. It was a real heavy lift, and I want to thank all that made it happen. I want to highlight our PTAs, our Wiseburn Education Foundation, who stayed engaged as true partners throughout this process. And, you know, frankly, when we look at the totality of it all, Wiseburn really didn't miss a beat. So I want to thank you to all of those folks and others that maybe I didn't mention here. I did join a group of high school students and Wiseburn community members last Friday at a peaceful protest on the corner of 135th and Aviation. The students and families showed tremendous support to what I would believe is a worthy and just cause. I met a young man by the name of Levi, and I believe he shared a public comment today. He was carrying a sign asking that we change the name of the school, of his school, because Peter Burnett was a racist. He echoed many of the sentiments we heard in the public comment today. I share this with the board, as you've also asked me to look into and potentially put together a committee to change the name of Peter Burnett School. I would like to just, for the record, share that the governing board does reserve the right to engage in a process to change a school's name as per board policy 7310A. So as we look to do this, we could look at a couple month, a 2 to 3 month process, but you know, I know there's some interest from the board and from the community that we maybe get this done by the beginning of the next school year. So we're gonna start with a target of being September 1st of 2020. And hopefully we can hit that mark for the board, for the community, for our students. Lastly, or almost lastly, I guess, I want to echo the comments that Dave shared regarding the budget. While I'm hopeful that the state and federal officials will provide some needed relief to school districts, we still have to walk very carefully, very cautiously and conservatively as budget season is upon us. I've had the opportunity to join with superintendents across 80 districts in LA County to advocate for adequate school funding in opposition of the governor's May revision. And that's come via 2 letters, one that's going to be actually sent out tomorrow. So I just wanted to share that with the board. I want to end on a high note. So we'll get through that. I just want to congratulate our 5th graders who some graduated today or promoting today. It's nice to see Anza celebrating that. Just a wonderful day, no matter how you look at it, for our kids. I'd also like to congratulate our Dana Middle School students who will virtually promote tomorrow, and my daughter's among those that are promoting tomorrow. So a proud father today and tomorrow, as well as proud of all of our students for their efforts and for being able to withstand this difficult time and promote tomorrow. And to end on even a higher note, I want to thank Mrs. Kelly Shoemaker for allowing me to attend her TK class celebration today. It was virtual, but surely was the highlight of my week. And so I just want to thank her for that and thank her class and her students. So I could keep going on, Mr. Mora, but I think I'll stop there. Thank you. I think you're on mute, Mr. Mora.
All right, here we go. I said, if you could get us a copy of Ms. Shoemaker's celebration, we'd love to see it. Moving forward. All right, from the agenda, approve the minutes from May 28th. We have a motion.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Joanne. Second.
Second.
All right, any questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Have to
Aye.
do a roll call, Wendy.
Mr. Buñuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. All right, thank you, Wendy. Forward action items, general, approve 6.1 to 6.4, unless anyone has any reason not to do those together. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
I'll
Neil?
second.
I think Roger was in there first. Any questions, comments? All right, Wendy, would you do a roll call?
Mr. Buñuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. All right, thank you. Moving forward to action items, 7.1 to 7.3.
Mr. Mora?
Motion.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6.5 that was added to the agenda at the beginning.
Oh, thank you,
On
thank
the
you, thank you.
committee.
So
So
my
I'd like to make a
apologies.
motion.
I'd like to call 6.5, and that is to have a committee look at the possibility of renaming Peter Burnett. And Roger, you'd like to motion. Do we have a second?
I'd like the second.
Thank you, Nelson. Any comments, questions?
Quick clarification. So and maybe Dr. Goldman, maybe it was in your comment, but I have a note here of, and so I don't know if it was part of the motion, but about a 138th Street School. Is that, was that part of the motion or was that just part of your comment?
It was my comment, but I'd support it.
If it's okay with everyone, I'd like to put that on the agenda for the next meeting and have some choices and pick a name at our next board meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody?
I certainly would support Neil's.
And I'm talking about a temporary name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I
a,
would
just a referent, so we can
I would-
refer to it in some way other than his current name.
Yeah, I would support Neil's proposal as interim.
138th. Anybody else support that? Okay, so let's just go
Second.
the motion with the temporary name of 138th Street. Is that correct? Okay. Wendy, would you like to call the question?
Mr. Buñuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Roger. And moving forward to action items 7.1 to 7.3, do we have a motion?
I'll move with a question.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second. I have a question also.
Okay, Neil, go ahead and ask your question.
My question is on 7.3, I've heard Canvas has been used by many of our teachers. This isn't a judgment, it's a question. How many of our teachers, what percentage of our teachers are using this service?
So I can answer that. At Dana Middle School, all the teachers use this. It's a campus-wide norm.
Thank you.
Hey, Joanne, you had a question?
Yeah, my question had to do with 7.2, which is the contract for the board doc software. Do we do this year to year all the time, or could we maybe have this be a longer than 1 year contract?
Dave, do you want me to respond?
Yeah, so we do this year to year. I can certainly inquire if we wanted to do a long-term contract. I don't know if we'll get a rate discount.
Yeah, that
if
was
we-
the point, I guess. Yeah.
Right. I can inquire. If we don't get a rate discount, I don't like to get into long-term contracts as you know, what's the benefit to us?
Sure, for sure. My
Okay.
question really had to do with if there was any cost benefit to a longer contract, but obviously if there's not, it doesn't help us, especially in a budget situation.
Right. I can certainly inquire.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah,
I would-
then could we pull this pending next meeting, or does this have a timeline on it? Because if Dave's going to give us, if it is possible to get a better pricing, we shouldn't approve this.
Neil,
we can-
Dr. Goldman, I just one question. I believe Dave did try last year to achieve get a discount on this, and they weren't very forthcoming with discounts from board docs, which is why we decided to do it year to year.
It is a different time.
So we could certainly reach out to them and see if that's something they're willing to do, but just hasn't been their past practice. But if you'd like us to pull it and bring it back, we can do that, certainly.
Any competitors we can talk to?
We may upset Wendy if we do that. We don't want to
No,
do that.
we did a study on this. There were not very many competitors.
All right, did we, so we'd like to approve it, or do we want to pull it?
Well, okay, I guess the question was, if we pull it and wait till next time, are we harming anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, then I'd like to
we'll-
pull it and wait till next time.
Okay, sounds good. So we'd like to approve 7.1 and 7.2.
No, 7.1 and 7.3.
I'm sorry, 1 and 3. Thank you for the correction. Wendy, would you like to do a roll call?
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. So officially 7.2 is shelved to next meeting. All right, moving forward, 8.1 to 8.7 on consent items. Do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Roger. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Nelson.
Okay.
Any questions from anyone? All right, Wendy, would you like to do a roll call?
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward to personnel items, we have 9.1 and 9.2. Actually, let's separate them. 9.1 is accepting resignations. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions? Wendy?
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to 9.2, Resolution 19/20.25, honoring Ms. Teresa Rabine. Blake, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, and I'm actually going to read the resolution to honoring Teresa. I want to speak from a personal perspective. She was one of the first people I met when I was hired as an assistant principal at Dana Middle School, I don't know, 13 years or so ago. And, you know, never a day went by that she was there that she didn't ask how things were going, but most importantly, it was always about the family. And you know, some of those little things make a big difference when you're day to day. And she always asked how the kids were doing and how the family was doing. And so, on a very personal note, this is a loss to the district. You know, I applaud all her work. I mean, definitely happy for her and her retirement, but definitely we're going to miss Teresa. So I'll read this. This is a resolution honoring Teresa Rabine for 26 years of service in the Wiseburn Unified School District. Resolution number 19-20.25. Those employees who have devoted a very significant part of their work life to the Wiseburn Unified School District deserve special recognition. Wiseburn has changed greatly over the past 26 years, and this change has brought many challenges to all our employees. Commendations are in order for those individuals who have in some way left a positive mark on the lives of our students. Whereas, in rising to meet the challenges of providing for our students, Teresa Rabine has for 26 years devoted her career as an outstanding playground and instructional aide. And whereas throughout her career, Teresa has distinguished herself as a dependable and excellent support of the students, teachers, staff members, administrators, and the Wiseburn community. And whereas Teresa has always demonstrated a very positive attitude towards work and is universally respected by the students, her coworkers, and staff. And whereas Teresa, throughout her 26-year Wiseburn career, has appropriately been described as dedicated, enthusiastic, a hard worker, pleasant, flexible, positive, vigilant, always willing to go above and beyond the call of duty, and an integral part of R.H. Dana Middle School. And whereas the contributions of the classified employees are greatly valued and appreciated and are recognized as a tremendous asset to the district, therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Wiseburn Unified School District publicly commends and recognizes Teresa Rabine for her years of dedication to the children, parents, and staff members of the Wiseburn Unified School District, adopted this 10th day of June of 2020.
Wow. Thank you, Blake, very much. Wendy, would you like to call the question?
Mr. Benalos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Thank you. Well, we'd definitely like to wish Teresa a wonderful retirement and hope that she enjoys the time with her family and that all goes well in retirement for her. Upcoming dates and events. We have tomorrow, Thursday, June 11th, the Dana Middle School promotion video release. Also tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th, Da Vinci graduations, Da Vinci extension from 11:30, Da Vinci communications from 12 to 1:30, Da Vinci science from 2 to 4, and Da Vinci design from 4:30 to 6:30. Does anyone have any other dates or events they would like to share? Okay.
I would like to know when the next RAP meeting is. You know you're on mute, Blake.
I think it's June 15, Joanne.
Thank you.
Is that the Monday? I'm sorry. It was Monday, the 15th.
Let's see.
Yeah,
Well, if somebody could just send it out, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
sure.
Anything else before we adjourn? Okay, so I'd like to have a 10-minute at 8:30. Let's make it 9 minutes at 8:30, do the closed session. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Well.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.